Hello and welcome to the pre-conference podcast for the second edition of the Mining 4.0 Summit. It will take place in Toronto, Canada on the 30th and the 31st of March. Today we have the pleasure of introducing to you Martin PROVENCHER with AVEVA. Martin, thank you very much for joining us today. Could you please tell us about your role in the company and about the company itself?
Yeah, thank you, Dimitri. I'm Martin PROVENCHER. I'm the Global Industry Principal for Mining and Metals at AVEVA. I'm also Vice President of the Maintenance, Engineering and Reliability Society of the Canadian Institute of Mining. So, of course, I'm highly involved in the mining industry. So my role within AVEVA as an industry principal is basically to support customers, to help customers towards their digital transformation journey. So I've been into operations, I've been into maintenance. I managed operations and maintenance in the past. I've managed IT and automation. So I know the technology part, I know the operations and maintenance part of mining operations. So of course I can easily have such a conversation with mining customers and see where is it that technology can help them and how is it that we can implement such technologies and things like that. So that's basically my role. AVEVA, so I work for AVEVA. AVEVA is a global leader in industrial software. So it covers different industries. I mean, chemicals, oil and gas, power, etc., and of course, mining and metals. So I'm leading the mining and metals group, and then of course we have people all around the world that are providing local support to customers.
Thank you for that introduction, Martin. Coming to my next question, why is it important to discuss the sustainability topic now?
Well, that's a very good question. We all know that, the global warming situation around the world, and mining also has an important role to play into that decarbonization journey. EY actually has identified the environmental, social governance with water and decarbonization aspects being #1 risk and priority for 2023 in mining and metals. So this is definitely something that the industry is looking at today. The good news is that there are lots of digital initiatives that can really help there with relatively easy implementation, low-cost implementation, and that can bring significant improvements in terms of emissions or energy consumption or things like that. For example, environmental compliance rules that are becoming more and more challenging in different countries. Those rules can easily be implemented and monitored in our technology, so in operational data infrastructure, for example. So condition-based monitoring for process efficiency, for water management, energy consumption, etc. Those can all be easily implemented with the knowledge that people already have, people at mine sites or vendors, OEM vendors already have. So that expertise, the idea is to leverage the expertise of our people and or the compliancy rules that are in place, and make sure that those are being monitored in real time, so that whenever there's a potential deviation, we are being notified and we can take an action. So this is the first step. Of course, there are future steps. We can even think about planning and forecasting environmental emissions or energy consumption. So of course, all those advanced analytical tools that we can use will allow us to implement such initiative, which will, of course, have a positive impact in terms of ESG or compliancy.
Thank you for that. And how can engineering handover improvements influence mining operations?
Well, as we all know, there's a lot of projects that are happening, especially, now with the decarbonization journey. Mining companies will go through EPC or EPCM vendors for new projects. They will add technology and things like that. According to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the challenge is that when the handover process is happening, there's a lot of lost time that happens for people searching for data. Actually, they are saying that there's $4.8 billion lost in lost time. So, and I've been through it with a large EPCM project. And what happens is that, you know, the designers, the contractors, they all do their job. They all do a good job. They design a new plant, a new site. They design, they put all the equipments, they test the equipments, everything looks fine. The problem is that once we start operating, there are lots of situations that happens during operations, environmental changes, you know, temperature changes and things like that. And then we have to make sure that our systems are operating efficiently. And the problem is that sometimes it was operating during the tests when the handover was done, when the green tagging was done. But then when we start operating it in real time for 24 hours, 7 days a week, then we are starting to have problems. And when we have a problem, our maintenance teams and operations team have to investigate. And this is where the problem starts, is where do they find that information? Where is it available? Typically, you know, once an EPC delivers a project, it delivers the drawings, it delivers the PNIDs. It's all independent documents. The maintenance team will receive maintenance documents from the OEM vendor. So all independent documents that are not related. And then when a failure happens, or an emergency situation or whatever, such a situation happens, this is where the problem starts, because people are having a hard time finding the information they need to troubleshoot or to solve a problem. So, you know, typically, this is where technology, again, can play a big role. So traditionally, you know, there's a lot of inefficient processes that are happening when we're sharing data between different disciplines, for example, between the EPC, between the engineering department, between the operations team, the maintenance team. They all have their own, if I may say, silos. And when a problem happens, it's very difficult for the people that are trying to troubleshoot to find all that information. So what we're saying is that this should all be digitalized right up front, right from the beginning, so that if we take a digital approach right from the beginning towards a data sharing approach, then of course all that data becomes available for the operations and the maintenance team, and they have all the visibility around everything that they need to operate properly and also to troubleshoot properly. And of course, it gives the operations team much more confidence in the way that they operate and the way that they troubleshoot those assets. So it's really a shift that companies are starting to take around the handover process towards all those engineering projects. So they're digitalizing or digitizing that handover process.
And why is it important to consider new asset management strategies?
Well, again, that's another big topic. You know, asset reliability is a big thing in mining. Whenever an asset goes down, it creates major problems, and of course, it has some safety. It can represent some safety issues. So most companies actually have a calendar-based maintenance schedule, or a preventive or preventative maintenance schedule. Those are all synonyms. And when you look at the studies, I mean, only 18% of assets actually fail on their calendar base. So it means that I mean, what are we doing with all the rest of the assets? That's why we're all struggling with assets that are going down, or with failures, downtimes, and things like that, or reliability issues. So what happens is that reliability engineers will typically do RCM analysis, reliability centered maintenance analysis. Whenever there's a failure, they will try to find the root cause of the failure, try to make sure that it doesn't happen anymore. You know, the challenge is, what do they do with those findings? Typically, people will put those findings in a report, in an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. They will try to follow up in the future about all those conditions that they have found, you know. But the problem is that this is not happening in real time. So we need to find ways to move towards new maintenance strategies, including, for example, condition-based maintenance. but real-time condition-based maintenance. So typically, like I said, reliability engineers will try to do the best they can with an Excel spreadsheet. They will do condition-based monitoring by themselves, but this is not in real time. So we'll try to leverage the operational data of our assets and implement real-time condition-based maintenance on our operational data infrastructure. So that's really the first step to move towards a new maintenance strategy that will help us improve significantly in terms of reliability and, of course, reduce costs. And then, of course, we can look at what is it that we don't know yet, the conditions that we have not found yet. For example, an asset fails always on different conditions. So it's hard to identify what happens, when will it fail. So this is where predictive analytics or predictive maintenance strategies can be implemented. 20 years ago when I was production director, I've implemented predictive maintenance, but it was mainly a guy that was manually doing vibration readings. Now all of that can be automated and we can collect all that vibration, but not only vibration data, temperature, speed, etc. All that operational data can be captured, can be analyzed with a predictive analytical tool, with the proper, machine learning models. We can definitely predict a potential failure and then, of course, avoid that failure or that downtime. And this will have significant impact on our maintenance costs. Typically, mining companies maintenance costs can represent up to 50% of their operational costs in some cases. So of course, it can represent a lot of money. So if we can help those mining companies reduce those maintenance costs and of course, improve the reliability of the assets, so improving the tonnage at the end, because if your assets are reliable and are not going down, then you're still operating and producing more tonnage. So at the end, so this is a big thing. There's a lot of value where digital technologies can bring significant improvements here in the asset management strategy.
And what do we mean by improving operations visibility?
Well, that's an important topic also. I mean, most of the time mining operators have visibility on their equipment. So the operators themselves, they know what's happening. But what about engineers and managers, that are trying to solve, planning issues or look at reliability issues, like I said earlier. So, and even for managers, knowing exactly, precisely how much tonnage we're producing today, what was the last shift production, things like that. I mean, typically, it's very hard for managers and engineers to have access to all that information. Sometimes they have to call the operator on the floor or at the mine site, hey, what is the speed or what? So this is where we're talking about operations visibility, is that once you have the proper tools in place, once you're collecting all the operational data as a first step to bring that information into one place, then everyone can have access to that information. This is definitely the first step. Now, next step is, are we trying to solve a specific problem? Do we need to have access to the engineering drawings, of those assets at the same time? So again, having global visibility on all of the production, in real time, all the production results in real time brings significant value, but then having the ability to combine it with the engineering drawings, with the planning and scheduling of the activities that are planned for today, all of these things, once you can bring all of that together, that is when we're talking about operations global visibility. And again, this is where technology can bring a lot of value. There are still a lot of manual entries, manual reporting that are being done in the mining industry. So there are lots of opportunities to improve on those aspects. And of course, we will cover that during the talk.
And coming to my last question, which challenges should the industry prepare for in the nearest future?
Well, that's a very good question. Actually, there are lots of challenges arriving, but I think with the EY study does refer to it very nicely. I mean, the ESG aspect is really one of the big things. I mean, having or keeping their license to operate for mining companies is the most important topic. I mean, if they don't have the license to operate, they can't operate. And this goes with, all those compliance rules and things like that we've discussed earlier. So ESG is definitely more and more challenging in lots of countries. Of course, I mean, now the challenge that companies are facing will be first to know, I mean, what are they consuming? What are they emitting in terms of emissions? I mean, those companies that do not have that visibility, this is probably the first challenge, the first thing that they will have to cover. They will have to address that, because for sure they need to have visibility. That's the first step towards improving, is to see what's happening. So first step is to see what's happening, and then of course we'll all want to monitor that in real time. We'll all want to look at potential initiatives for improvements. So those will be mainly the main topic. Now, that once we have access to that data, it will be important to gather the expertise of our people. The other important thing that will happen is the aging workforce that's coming. So having a hard time finding people to replace our people that are retiring, for example. So how is it that we're capturing all that knowledge, all that expertise that our people have now, and once they will retire, that is almost lost. So that's why we're saying that we should start right now with the digitalization of that expertise. So making sure that we're capturing all that expertise. I talked about the reliability engineers doing RCM analysis, for example. All those conditions that they find during those analysis. Same for environmental engineers, same for all these people, process engineers. Those should all be captured and digitalized into a platform that will remain. Whenever people will retire, that expertise will not be lost. Another great example that we see is companies leveraging, simulation. So they're taking their best operators that are about to retire, for example, their oldest people, their people that have been there for so many years, that have lots of expertise, and they're asking them to work with experts to build simulation models. So to create kind of a simulation model so that the new hirees will be able to be trained on those models. So this is another challenge that companies will be facing, the aging workforce. And of course, I mean, there are digital solutions that can help towards that.
I absolutely agree. Martin, thank you very much for making the time to join me today and giving us your insight on the mining operations, the different strategies, and overall about the future of the mining industry. We're very excited to have you on the speaker board of the summit, and we'll be really looking forward to hearing your case study in Toronto. I would also like to use this opportunity to invite everyone to the second edition of the Mining 4.0 Summit on the 30th and 31st of March to hear Martin PROVENCHER's insights and many other exciting discussions.